All right. Welcome to the show. Andrew Knapp joins me today. He's the best-selling author of his books, The Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, and 3 words I use to sell 100,000 books. He's an expert in organic marketing strategies and distilling complex and overwhelming subject matter into straightforward and consumable content. Andrew, pleasure having you on the show, my man.
Jake, thanks so much for having me. You probably realize now why, my last name is so short. It's because those book titles are so long. So people just search for Cap and it gets easier for them, right?
Dude, I don't know. I was like, speaking of your book titles, by the way, they're long. They're
Mhm.
very simple in the standpoint of like, they are exactly what they are. There's no guessing, right? Right. One book is the last book that you'll need to read in a certain space. Another book is, you know, 3 words that you use to sell. But you also use a lot of colors in your titles, a lot of different colors in your titles. I'm interested in that just because you can see it if you're watching the video version. You've got those book titles behind you. What's up with the color schemes there?
Well, it's interesting, and I'm no image expert, even though I did design the covers myself. Actually, for 3 words, I used to sell 100,000 books. One of the bonuses I give away, the free bonuses at the end, is a link to a 27-minute video where I literally break down my whole psychological approach towards the colors and everything. Like, I'll put it this way. Ideally, if you have a good title, especially for a nonfiction book that lets people know within the title itself what's in it for them if they read it, my number one concern is just that when they're in that sea of stuff on Amazon and all the different titles and all the different colors and everything, they're going to be able to read the title, and even if they don't like it, at least make an informed decision on the book based on that. So the colors I use, it's my best attempt at a simultaneous like level of pop without being so loud and distracting that their eyes can't actually receive the information when they're scrolling real fast on their page.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great, man. I appreciate that. Looking forward to unpacking that video myself and reading through it. But hey, as we get anchored in here, as we're starting the show, who's this
Mhm.
Andrew guy that's joining me today, man? Give me a little bit about you, your background, and how you found yourself in a position where you're authoring books on the laws of attraction and getting into digital marketing and sales.
It's so funny because I know, like, I think any entrepreneur out there, especially someone that's putting themselves out there, they have like an origin story, right? And at this point, I feel like I have like 5 or 10 origin stories because there's so many critical points in my life that moved me in a certain direction. The most relevant, I think, for this conversation, like, where this comes from is I think a lot of people can relate, especially, entrepreneurs. I remember starting my business very young, my first business, and obviously struggling, obviously not knowing what the hell I'm doing, obviously having a lot to learn, and not knowing what I don't know, which was the worst part. And I was very in tune about, like, listen, I need to find like the secret to happiness and success, thereby going down that rabbit hole of self-development, personal development, self-improvement, all that stuff. Law of attraction being one of those modalities I looked at, but one of many. And honestly, when I was doing that, Jake, it was very inconsistent. My results. I would later find out a couple years later that it's actually me who was inconsistent, because the real crux of who I am now as a person is kind of like laid out from 2008, where all within the span of 1 week, I lost my business, or really had to give it up because it was dying anyway, and my relationship of 3 years, like within 3 days of one another. And after 3 year relationship, she didn't break up in person or even over the phone. She broke up over text to let you know how like
Oh no.
rough everything was. And I basically had to look in the mirror and be like, listen, something's got to change. And I look back on my life. I'm like, okay, of all the things that kind of started to work or seemed like they were going to work, law of attraction, if I didn't stop it, whenever I stopped it, then it stopped working. But like, it seemed like it was going along somewhere. So I said, I don't care what it takes. I don't care what happens, when it happens, why it happens, how it happens. I'm going to go all in with this thing. And all in being not all day, every day, because I think psychologically we know that's not sustainable, no matter how angry you are, with how your life is. But 5 or 10 minutes a day, every single day without fail, gratitude exercises, visualization, things like that. And Jacob was like a movie, because like within 2 weeks, I felt a hell of a lot better than anyone with a broken heart had any business feeling, say nothing of a completely shattered business. Within 3 months, I'm in a brand new, way healthier relationship. Within 4 months, I'm making more money than at any point in my life before then. Within 6 months, I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, I'm in the best shape of my life. Everything's clicking. And I basically learned the hard way. We'll call it a law of attraction thing, whatever it is. It kind of works when you work it. And regarding my journey to an author, like after that, I kind of like went about my life with that new understanding and that new context. But it wasn't until 11 years later where I was kind of like bored and frustrated in what I was doing. And I finally, after all this time, asked myself, what is it about my life? What do I have that's interesting that I can genuinely be fulfilled and excited about engaging with? Meaning, if a customer or a client emails me, I'm excited to reply to that email and engage with them. And poof, pop my head like law of attraction. So there I kind of said, all right, well, there's 1,000 law of attraction books out there. If I'm going to write something, I have to add something new to the conversation, hence the very bold promise and very bold title of the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read, which technically has been my primary thing just because it's been so exciting and fulfilling. But along the way, reporting to people, hey, I sold 40,000 copies. Hey, I sold 50,000, 75,000. I have people popping out like from my friends network, like, how are you doing this? So I'm hopping on hour plus long calls with them because I don't want to charge them. And I'm saying the same thing over and over again. I'm like, you know what? Let me just write a book. And that way, the next time someone says, hey, Andrew, how'd you sell over 100,000 copies of your book? Like, all right, listen, this thing's $4 on Amazon. It's going to be way worth more than spending an hour of your time with me just trying to break it down. If you still have questions, let me know. But that's this like weird pivot where I'm not abandoning the law of attraction book, but I also like this summer, like, well, let me publish 3 words I use to sell 100,000 books, give people my entire, mostly organic blueprint for marketing the book and getting it out there, which hopefully any nonfiction author or really anyone in business of selling anything of value to their customer or client would hopefully be able to apply the lessons and examples for themselves.
Okay. Very good. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. So let's just
Yes.
start with the concept of law of attraction or laws of attraction. That might be an unfamiliar term for some folks listening. It's certainly something that I've been interested in quite a bit in the last 7 or 8 years and explored in a handful of different ways. So excited to kind of maybe have a little back and forth here around what it means to you and why is this the last book on the laws of attraction? What did you add to the conversation?
Yeah, and by the way, Jake, on behalf of your audience, I welcome you to challenge this and say it's bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
please, like if that's where the conversation goes, awesome, because I think that's valuable also. So real quick, the law of attraction, the way I describe it, it's basically rooted in the understanding or the assumption that everything is energy. Your energy, I'm energy. The equipment that we're having this conversation is energy, the laptops. But also thoughts are energy. And there's also this understanding that, all energy vibrates at frequencies and that like frequencies resonate with other like frequencies. Meaning, if you extrapolate it in that way, theoretically, you can attract certain things into your life by simply thinking about them because the thoughts are literally grabbing onto those realities and magnetizing them. So, which most people would say, okay, well, Andrew, that's nice and everything, but what about that job promotion I've been wanting and thinking about every single day for the last year? How come it hasn't come? To which I always ask them, okay, well, when you're thinking about that job promotion, are you doing it with a sense of confidence, excitement, enthusiasm, anticipation, or is it coming from a place of frustration and impatience? Because if you're thinking about anything and you're not feeling good, you're actually thinking about the lack of the thing and you don't realize it. And that's that subtle nuance where positive emotions means you're actually thinking about the thing that you want. Negative means you're actually thinking that you don't have it and reaffirming that to the universe. And by the way, if you don't believe in the universe, I would hopefully think that you believe in that your subconscious mind, very powerful supercomputer, which you probably want to be careful with the kind of instructions and programming that you're sending to that thing, because that thing is a beast and it will overwhelm your conscious mind. It will overwhelm everything else, and it will get the result that's programmed into it.
Yeah, it's a purposeful, like for me, it's surrounding yourself with things that are value added to your overarching goal or your cause or the thing that you're approaching. And like for me, growing and scaling my consulting firm, adding value to my clients, however that may be, engaging with you on a podcast, I'm here to learn, right? This is a law of attraction for me. You have information that's going to probably help me in my life or help me look at things differently. I'm excited and grateful for this type of conversation. Does that fit in your context or definition of laws of attraction, or is that tangentially related?
Oh yeah, well, everything fits in. So I mean, it's a weird thing, and because like I try not to come off like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid every single day because there's nuance to everything.
Yeah.
I believe everything in some way, shape, or form is kind of governed by this. But by that same token, 3 words I used to sell 100,000 books. Those 3 words are not law of attraction. And I think, yeah, we've kind of come into this space both through physical action and inspired action and, energetic happenstance. Like, how did we link up? Well, there's so many different ways. And we have a friend, Todd in common, who kind of like connected us. Well, I was interacting with Todd, and then Todd reached out to you. Okay, that's a physical action. But by that same token, I'm putting myself in the space of being around really solid people, which got me to Todd to begin with. And you being like in this inspired action where you're putting in this podcast, and you're leaving the open door and the open invitation for people. So it's kind of a combination of everything. I think a lot of people that hear law of attraction, the ones that are familiar with it, and they think that most people that talk about it, they're kind of saying you got to sit on your couch all day and just think about it and poof, it will come. But we are in a three-dimensional reality here. We're in a physical reality. And I believe an aspect of law of attraction is action, inspired action, meaning, yeah, sit on your couch for long enough that you get inspired to take an action, but then you actually have to do the thing. You have to write the book. You have to start the business. You have to go on that dating app and make that profile if you want to meet the love of your life. You actually have to physically engage. Ideally, you're doing it from a sense of abundance and anticipation and excitement, because then your action will be so much more powerful, versus out of the sense of lack and desperation, where you're going to have a lot of negative leverage and you're going to be going in the wrong direction and just spinning your wheels.
Yeah, it seems like, as you describe it, it seems like very simple, right? From the standpoint of decide on what you want, put yourself in a position to get what you want. So give to others, stay positive, be resilient. Countless speakers, dude, countless authors have touched on these concepts of just making a decision and then investing your time and effort and being relentless to that approach and making minor pivots along the way, but keeping the main goal in mind. In your experience in writing in this space and getting feedback in this space, why is it so hard for people to make a decision about what they want? Like, you're not going to attract the things that you want if you can't make a decision about what you want. That decision-making process is so interesting to me.
Well, I think, part of it is like the thing that the people really want, it feels impossible to them. So there's kind of like a short circuit in their brain where they don't even want to go down that road. Like, okay, I really want like be a billionaire. Like, I don't want to be, I don't care about being a billionaire, but like, imagine you want to be a billionaire, right? It feels so big. It's like, wait, so I'm not even going to put that down because that's going to go in the wrong direction. Let me
Like,
settle for six figures.
Even the voice that you gave the person who wanted to be a billionaire is reflective of how much of an audacious goal that is, right? Like, oh,
Yes.
I want to be a billionaire. Okay, well, okay, right?
And Jake, you make such a good point there. It's like, this is everywhere. It's even in the inflection of my voice describing someone completely different than me. It's like, it's so pervasive. And I think, like, if someone said, listen, you could literally, like, if a genie popped in front of them and they say you could have anything you want, maybe they'll start small and say stuff. But if they know they've got more than 3 wishes, I guarantee you within an hour, they're going to be surrounded by everything. And that doesn't necessarily have to be physical stuff. They could be surrounded by love, by family, by people that are important to them. They will figure out what they really want as long as they see what they're getting, which brings us to another difficulty here, because personally, Jake, I used to hate those books like, just decide what you want, just intend it. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, and here's the problem, because most of this stuff is not instant. So you are left in this space of, is this going to happen? Is this going to work? And because most people are in that space and that doubt, it doesn't work. And then they're like, this thing doesn't work. I don't even know if I'm intending it right. So there's this confusion, there's this doubt, there's this cloud, this fog. They don't even know if they're doing it right. Whereas I'm a huge proponent of, listen, decide what you want, yes, and move in that direction, but be strategic and be intelligent, and to whatever measure you can with where you are in your life right now, try to enjoy it. Try to enjoy your life right now to whatever measure you can, rather than waiting for the thing, because, spoiler alert, when you get that thing, you're going to want something else, meaning technically the time that you spend wanting something is the entire time of your life, even if you've already gotten things. So the smartest and most strategically intelligent thing and wisest thing you can do for yourself is be happy with what you have right now, the food on the table, the clothes on your back, the people that are in your life, the fact that you were smart enough and resourceful enough to start a business, even if it's not going well right away, because ironically enough, and it's counterintuitively enough, when you are grateful and excited about that, you leave a deeper, faster, a more exciting, more amazing pathway for those other things to come into your life. And if you're too busy, enjoying your life to worry too much about how come you haven't gotten what you've gotten yet, you're going to be much more successful. Like case in point, me, I want to sell over 1 million copies of my book, but I guarantee you that from day one, I did not look at all the people selling more books than me, all the people who sold millions, and be jealous. And I was like, no, I'm grateful that the first day, like within an hour of putting it up on Amazon, I saw 2 sales come in. And because I was like, oh, I'm always grateful, I'm always enthusiastic. Now I've got 100,000 copies in the bag, and I'm moving towards 200,000. That's nothing compared to 1 million, but amazing compared to most people, most independent authors who sell a couple hundred other books, and that's it. So
Yeah.
it's all about, like, when you have that healthy perspective, that's when the things that are really amazing really happen. And I believe I'll get to 1 million way more easily and way quicker because I'm not desperately seeking it. I'm more open to it and enjoying my success and grateful for my success right now in the meantime.
Yeah, and to maybe expand on this concept a little bit with, I heard a great quote a number of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Actually, it came out of George Bryant's mouth, but it's not George's quote. It's you can't be upset by the results you didn't get by the work you didn't do. Right? I mean,
Mm.
very clear, very simple. I think one of the challenges that you were just talking through, and I'd love to expand on with you, is the the difference or the distance between results and expectations of individuals when they start on this journey. Like it's hard enough to make a decision that, like, I want to be a millionaire at doing this, right? Okay. I said the thing, I put it out into the world, that's difficult as it is. And to get there, here's my plan. And I've worked my plan for a year and 2 years, and then now 3 years, now 4 years. And I've tried to do the thing, and I still haven't hit my goal. And I'm so frustrated and upset. And now I start looking at myself and I start getting depressed in that journey. How do you help people, or maybe you just have a perspective on this, manage that gap between results and expectations?
Well, I think the key is understanding why that gap exists in the first place. It's all about awareness. Now, so for like I think we all need to acknowledge, or it's strategically wise for us to acknowledge, that we live in an instant gratification world that's reaffirmed because that's how things get sold. The fact that you need the latest iPhone, or you need a fancy watch, or this and that, and you need it right away. We basically, for the economy to move forward, there's been this understanding in place, whether it's accurate or not, whether it is the best way or not. It's like, you've got to make people want, you've got to make people feel incomplete. This is a result of us being surrounded by programs, magazines, newspapers, television, internet, you name it, of feeling incomplete, unfulfilled, not whole in who we are, without the consumers and without those things. And that bleeds into having a business, that bleeds into wanting the love of your life. And by the way, I mean, I'm going to kind of date myself here. I don't even remember the name of it. There was a show on MTV like 25 years ago, where there'd be some kid who wants to like become something special, and they'd have like a mentor. I want to be a professional wrestler, I want to be a singer, I want to be this, I want to be that. And the person like hangs out with them for 30 days. And it's like, come on, 30 days, you're gonna be a professional wrestler in 30 days? Don't make me laugh here. And inevitably, like, the person usually screws up, but also like MTV would frame it away like, look, there was this result, look what happened in only 30
Yeah,
days.
they totally make. I know what show you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it, but
Mm-hmm.
it really was like this kind of condensed, like, hero's journey, right? They really
Yes.
pumped up this individual's 30 days worth of effort, and then they put them in these kind of like wild, completely synthesized and scripted situations and slow-mo and the whole deal. And then they come out the other side and they're like, yeah, it was harder than I thought, or I prevailed. Like, and
Yeah,
it was a
I
taste.
learned something about myself. I'm like,
Exactly.
okay, like I get to have the entrepreneur who's not a millionaire yet, who wants to be saying, hey, I learned something about myself, because they're too frustrated to be even doing that, because they don't have an MTV producer in their ear saying, hey, this is gonna be good for the camera. And
Right.
you put it like a condensed hero's journey. It's a brilliant, very insightful way of putting it, Jake, because that's what it is. And it's a falsely condensed hero's journey. And again, like, people don't realize that, like, when you're watching this stuff, like, I kind of sound like I'm talking to, like, hey, teenagers are getting junk in their brain. No, when you're watching this stuff, you can't help but be affected if you're paying attention, because your subconscious mind is receiving information, and it's making calculations without your permission. I think that's important for people to realize. No matter how smart and insightful and wise you are, your subconscious mind is making calculations without your permission, because if it doesn't, then it doesn't know how it's going to make sure that you survive. So
Yeah.
it is taking in that information. You almost got to reaffirm like, oh, I know that that's not how it works, so that your subconscious mind hears that as well, and that you don't have these false expectations. And then you feel like an incomplete failure because your business didn't take off in the first 5 months.
No, absolutely. And, you know, again, pivoting a little bit, when we talk about the concept of laws of attraction, and getting back to that conversation,
Mhm.
what, in your experience, what has been the most common misconception that
Mm.
people have about laws of attraction and what it is and what it isn't? Maybe we've talked a little bit. I think we're talking on the fringes probably of that, or at least, we're probably on the map with some things we were talking about, but I'd be curious.
Well, in my experience and what I've seen, the biggest misconception is really in the way that people approach it. And people like, because, I was talking about manifesting myths. And by the way, for all this, me talking about like, a condensed hero's journey, which was your brilliant insight or whatever else, magic can happen. And I think it's really important for people to be open to that because, again, I talked about my 6 month journey where things did happen. But the misconception here is people will do these manifesting methods, these manifesting techniques, gratitude, visualization, scripting, which we can talk about, and they're doing it in order to get their result. To which people are listening, like, well, Andrew, why else would I do this thing? Of course, I'm visualizing that thing to get my fancy car. Of course, I'm doing it to get more clients. Of course. And here's the little subtle nuance where people don't realize that they're actually screwing themselves over. When you are doing that method with the intention of getting your result, what you're basically doing vibrationally, energetically, and psychologically is screaming to the universe, your subconscious mind, to whatever you believe in. You're screaming that you don't have the thing. When you're gritting your teeth and trying to visualize really hard for that thing that you want, you're screaming, I don't have this actually. Well, what you should be doing
That's a
is
funny thought.
actually do these manifesting methods, these gratitude
Yeah.
visualize, do it for the sake of enjoying them. Only care about feeling good. Not care, and this is my attitude, by the way, not the only way, but a way. My attitude is I'm grateful every day and I think about these things. And I have an open invitation to the universe to pleasantly surprise me with the speed and manner in which it gives my results. Give me something better if it wants, give me something faster if it wants. But rather than like, oh, I want to make this, I want 1 million copies of the book. Like, no, I am grateful. I just feel really good about thinking about all the sales I'm getting, thinking about all the people that are reading it for the first time or listening to it and are getting excited and are telling their friends. I feel good. And I'm not trying to force it into reality because I feel good about it. Feeling good, just thinking about what you have or what you want or both, that's a secret. And like, to revisit your question, the biggest misconception is that you can do it by trying to grit your teeth and force it, where I think it's more about just being open, being grateful, being happy, because that really leaves the open pathway to more success and more happiness.
I found myself needing to be more grateful in my life. This was started about 7 or 8 years ago. I had lost a grip on just how fortunate I am and
Mm,
how much of an amazing life I have and how many opportunities I have in front of me. And I was really focusing on maybe a lot of the negative things that just kind of happened throughout the course of the ebb and flow of life. And it was starting to come out in a lot of different areas of my life as well. Um, I recently forgot. When I say recently, like a year and a half ago, I was going through quite a bit of stress, and I called a friend of mine, and he usually has good advice for me. And that's the first thing he said, man. He was like, "Hey, it doesn't sound like you're being grateful." He goes, "Maybe make some
mm,
peanut butter sandwiches and go hand them out to people who don't have. Maybe go spend some time, donate your time for a cause that's kind of close to you, but don't look for anything in return. Go out and exercise that muscle of gratitude, because it sounds like it's weakened or is beginning to atrophy, and you're gonna reduce the level of your operating system if you're not operating from a place of being grateful." So, with that said, I found myself having to synthesize gratitude to manifest, like to go in and say I'm grateful, and maybe you're
mm,
not like completely connected to that. I think through that practice of it, you start to really reinforce that belief of gratitude and that tenet in your life and how it's expressed.
mhm.
Maybe coach me up a little bit on starting to be grateful.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I have a method in my book, in the last law of attraction book I reviewed, that it addresses it specifically. And for anyone watching on video, actually hold up to the camera. It's hard to see. It's like it's a whole page. You see, there's no breaks.
Yeah.
It's like one long paragraph that takes up the entire book,
Yeah.
the entire page rather. I call this a gratitude blitz. And basically all you're going to do, and you can set a timer for 30 seconds. Well, I recommend 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Just set a timer and then just sit and try to think of things to be grateful for, not forcing them, just anything. Because those first 20 seconds, it's not, whatever. And even the first 90 seconds, but 2 minutes in, 3 minutes in, and here's how I'll give you like a mini gratitude blitz,
Yeah.
because I realize everyone out there, and I hate when I almost hate when people tell me like be grateful. It's like I've heard that a million times, and because I've heard it a million times, I'm kind of bored with it, even though I realize it's so important.
Yeah, well,
So
and I think maybe it's because people are telling you that, like, especially
yes.
when you're a kid, especially when you're not, right? So, like,
Hmm.
hey, I don't want to eat these peas. Be grateful you have food. And it's like, almost turns gratitude into something you have to do once you've done something bad or made someone unhappy.
Yes, it's almost like you feel like you're judged and you feel like you're being spoken down to,
Yeah.
and no one, it makes you resistant, obviously. But like a gratitude list. Okay, so everyone out listening right now, I mean, everyone's got something going on in their life, myself included, that might be frustrating you or pissing you off. But if you really, really think about it, if you just sit down and think about it, how could you not be grateful for your heart that's been beating in your chest every single second of every single minute of every hour of every day of every week of every month of every year of every decade of your entire life, tirelessly pumping blood, nutrients, oxygen to the rest of your body, the other organs, the other aspects that are serving you? How could you not be grateful for your hands, your fingers, your toes, your feet, your legs, your arms, your brain, your nose, your sense of taste, your sense of smell, your sense of touch, your sense of sight, your sense of hearing? Getting all the, how could you not be grateful for whatever device you are listening to this on, that you run your business, that you run your life, that you can receive text messages and email, and you can research. You have access to any bit of information for free that you don't have to pay for on YouTube and anywhere else on the internet. How could you not be grateful for the fact that you could listen? Like me and Jake, we're having this conversation in completely different parts of the world, and yet we're having it instantly. How convenient is this? How could you not be grateful, no matter where you are, wishing that you had more friends right now? How could you not be grateful for all the friends you had when you were a kid? How could you not be grateful for all the teachers that looked out for you, for all the mentors that tried to serve you? How could you not be grateful for the clothes on your back, for the food on the table, in the midst of all the stress, all the frustrations, all the heartache, for all the that woman who broke my heart? How could I still not be grateful for every kiss I enjoyed with her? Because if I didn't enjoy it that much, if it wasn't that meaningful, my heart wouldn't have been broken to begin with. I mean, there's so many things. And again, in the beginning, you're like, all right, I guess cool. But into this, you're like, whoa, life is not perfect, but it's awesome. And no matter where I'm at, I've had so many amazing experiences, so many amazing people in my life. And it begs the question, it begs the reason, if I've had so much in the past, there's nothing stopping me from continuing to experience and enjoy even more stuff in the future. And then there's a whole new world of possibility opens up to you psychologically and energetically.
Holy mic drop, brother. That was that was awesome. And you're absolutely right. And you just put me in that space, man. I could feel, I closed my eyes when you just started going down that path, and I just cannot help but smile right now, because you're absolutely right, man. It's, if you get connected to that and you truly get connected to the things that you should be, not maybe should is maybe the wrong word, but the things that, if you notice them and you put purpose around them, that you could be grateful for.
Mm,
What a beautiful thing to get your heart centered, your head centered, to get focused, and prerequisite to some of the other things that you talked about, I'm sure, around manifestation and scripting. Maybe
yes.
touch on those topics as you brought them up a little bit ago.
Yeah, well, so scripting is basically everyone is the journaling. Again, another, I kind of call these like cliches and loaded terms because like they've been said so much. But scripting is basically like journaling about your life as if you're living your dream life and you're journaling in the present tense. Meaning like me, I mean, not that a million books is the be all end all, but like I could journal like, hey, I'm so pumped today because I've officially got like 1 million copies of the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read sold. And I'm so excited because like I'm making the post right now to announce on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm prepping my studio because I want to do a big video for it. And I'm already getting text messages from people that kind of know that it was going to cross this threshold. I'm just like talking about like I'm actually writing this out in the present tense. And you can do this with your business, you can do this with your relationship, you could do the combination of everything. You could do a paragraph, you could do a page, you can handwrite it, you can type it, you can speak it. So like me, like the thing I do every single day, because people are wondering, hey Andrew, you take your own medicine. Every single day I pull out my phone and I go into the recorder app and I record a message anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes usually, where I'm talking about all the things I'm grateful for, some of which are here right now, some of which are on the way, all of which are spoken in the present tense. And I send that message to my friend across the country who does the same thing for me. So we've installed a little bit of social pressure there because we don't want to let the other guy down. And every single day, which I
Yeah.
think I've been doing this for 5 years now, me and him, he's seen my book explode to 100,000 copies in sales and me completely redefine my business and my life. I've seen him make new leaps and bounds in his relationships with his wife and his daughters. Like we've actually seen this process unfold and all these amazing things happen as we've continued to do this daily, very easy, very simple, very convenient, very enjoyable process.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to fear though, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think a lot of times, even reaching out and getting what I would consider an accountability partner, accountability buddy, whatever that is, having somebody to put that healthy social pressure on you to be consistent, that is, holding you, propping you up, or holding a little pressure in your life that allows you to anchor and focus and stay focused. It's hard to ask. It's hard to ask other people to, and it's hard to let people in to
Yes.
those intimate circles of your life. So advice on how you approached it.
Absolutely. Well, so something like this, I mean, you and be careful in what you're saying. That way, you don't feel like you're not going to share your social security number or anything. But it's almost like if there's no one in your life that you can do this yet, literally like go and find strangers, like go in Facebook Law of Attraction groups, and be like, hey, listen, FYI, I'm going to be doing an experiment. If anyone wants to join me, I can, we can start like a group Facebook Messenger chat where you just upload your message right there. But also notice, like this is an extra, strategy leveraging point. It's not a requirement. I can just as easily do this without someone across the country to send it to. I can literally just pull out my phone app. I can, you know, put in set a daily reminder on my phone, like, hey, Andrew, take 30 seconds out and record this message. I don't have to keep it. I can delete it. I don't have to send it anywhere. So the accountability partner is more possible than people realize, but certainly not required.
Very good. Very good. Well, hey, taking a pivot out of laws of attraction, one of the things that my understanding is that you started a business years
Mm-hmm.
ago in the digital marketing advertising space. Is that a fair characterization, or how would you characterize it?
I mean, I wouldn't call it advertising. I mean, basically, marketing and promoting. Let me restart. Publishing and marketing content,
Okay.
basically, and that included. I mean, I did copywriting for people, and I did a little marketing consulting, and it's more like I'm downplaying this because, to be honest, not to say anything bad, like I wasn't like this special, amazing guru or anything. I got results for people, but
Yeah.
it was more about like I was always interested in human psychology. So copywriting was the thing that was very interesting. Marketing to me is very interesting. Understanding the reasons people buy and how you can align those reasons and those interests with the quality of whatever it is that you have and hopefully the results that it's going to provide. To me, that's a very amazing, fun thing and fun road to go down.
I'm examining the social media sales environment um, pretty regularly now, and just kind of thinking about like where we are in cycles of um, vertical integration or disintegration, whether it be from platforms or whether it be from people's behaviors on those platforms. And it is hard to not see that the major player platforms, especially the Facebooks and the Instagrams, are more saturated with people who are selling things today, or have some kind of side hustle or offer or real estate, or whatever it is. Come see my, use my code, do this, do that, as opposed to what it used to be, which was like, here's a picture of me and Bob drinking beers at the game, right? There's some of that still. I don't know what the percentage breakdown is. One, the commoditization of sales. Like, it just the fact that it's almost everywhere we go and everything that we see, it's obviously made it harder for people to stand out. The way that you have seen this space evolve, do you have any hacks or tips or ways of thinking about this space today?
Yeah, so it's a bit cliched, but I think, and I've used that word before. I think sometimes cliches are, they're so often spoken truths because they are so true.
It's cliche to say cliche, but like, I'll allow
it. Exactly. So rather than kind of run from it, and rather than, not that you're saying that people were, but rather than run from it or rather than shy away from it, it's more like, how can you stand out? And you stand out by standing in. And what I mean by that is just doing a deeper dive into what you offer and having a good balance of actually giving free value, but also having value that people can pay for. I think it's really important to be so valuable to them for free, more so than what other people are charging for. But by that same token, being so adept and so skilled and so good in what you do that even after you give them that awesome, amazing free value, there's another level and another step for them to go through that they would pay you for.
Roger that. So not necessarily a bad thing that these social media platforms are really evolving into a way that it's really individualized sales or people putting themselves out there. But I mean, your tip there is, again, how do you serve your direct audience and how do you stand out with them? And do you really know who they are as opposed to blasting everyone?
And by the way, you do this with good old fashioned sales techniques. And what I mean by that, like, let's say you've got the most valuable thing in the world. Let's say I've got a really brilliant meditation, and we'll pretend 30 seconds of this meditation, and you are cloud nine, right?
Oh wow, yeah.
It's not enough. What a wonderful thing, right? I was actually, quick little side. Before we hopped on this call, I'm putting together a YouTube short / TikTok thing where I give a meditation for those 30 seconds, but it loops, so you can just sit there because leveraging the fact that like YouTube shorts will keep repeating it until you scroll past it. Like you could look like here to 30 seconds and then go into 30 seconds again and again and again. So people have this 30-second clip I made, and it could be as long of a meditation as they want it to be. But that notwithstanding, let's say like I had this brilliant meditation that's going to change your world, right? It's not enough just to post it. I have to understand copywriting concepts and copywriting it's because I need to grab people's attention in the first place in order for them to experience the thing, in order for them to get the value. Meaning there's nothing wrong with being salesy, in my opinion, so long as there is integrity on the other end and you're providing them with quality. But really learn about psychology, learn about what it takes to learn about what a hook actually is. I mean, I'm sure a lot of your audience already knows what a hook is, but understand what hooks are, understand what headlines are, understand the difference between subheadlines, understand the customer journey and all these things, and utilize that in those insights and those psychological, facts about them in order to get that value in front of them so that they notice you above everyone else.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, you mentioned meditation a moment ago. I can't help but think that you're probably into some pretty interesting ways of thinking, ways of getting centered. How do you entertain yourself, man? What are you into? Like, what are your go-to activities in life? What's your family life like? I'd love to see maybe outside of the author version of Andrew. Like, how are you experiencing the world?
It's so interesting because, author Andrew kind of like, really emerged a lot more at the same time as like when the pandemic hit. Meaning, all the stuff, like the guy who used to go out on a regular basis wasn't going out so much, and instead used that as an excuse, like, okay, well, if we're all locked down, let me just double down or even triple down on all my business stuff. So a lot of the stuff that I used to be into, like I used to be big into sports, basketball, football, baseball, this and that. To be honest, I don't do that so much right now.
COVID took me away from. I used to be a avid NFL college football fan and a pretty decent hockey and NBA fan. Maybe hockey less than the NBA. But yeah, now I just watch the UFC because the UFC was like the only thing that was really going on, and they captured me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so like for me, from an entertainment standpoint, I mean, there's two aspects. There's one, there's friends where I try to just like get together with them and have dinner and have lunch or whatever, reconnect. I've been doing a lot of that in this last quarter. Other than that, this can sound silly. Like I basically, consume like I guess we'll call it micro content. Like I consume YouTube shorts. Like I just find myself scrolling on social media like anybody else and entertain myself in that way. Like I'm unfortunately bored by like a lot of TV. Like I think Cobra Kai is awesome. And I was bored to tears by like Moon Knight and She-Hulk, where I didn't even finish the series because they're so boring. But it's like so I'm kind of like a few and far between guy, where there's very little TV that I actually consume like formally. And everything else is like I'm so busy in my work and I'm so busy trying to serve my customer and see friends in person that there isn't a lot of like Andrew's got this cool new hobby. Although behind me, you can probably see the top of a guitar. I was starting to learn guitar this year before I kind of hurt my wrist. And I'm also on Duolingo right now trying to learn Spanish. So I'm challenging myself, like basically rather than having like, fun, relaxing hobbies, I'm doing stuff that's just challenging myself more. And I don't know, it's almost like I can't help myself.
And I think that that's as long as what how you operate. Like I don't do well with idle time. My wife would tell you like that's a no-go for me. I can sit in front of a TV for about 45 minutes, maybe an hour, with her watching a show, something that we're both engaged in, gives us something to talk about, decompress, cuddle on the couch, those kinds of things.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I am always moving or doing something or trying to learn a skill or because I get anxious if I
Yeah.
have just kind of this time sitting around, and the second that I'm lacking purpose in doing something, I start digging holes. And usually it's negative behaviors. Usually it's things that bad habits that start to form, those types of things. So no, that's good to hear your perspective on that. And the thing I'm curious about COVID, where are you located at?
I'm in New York. So like I'm basically swapping between like Queens and Westchester. But
Okay,
I'm
so you're
I'm
in the city.
well, so I haven't been in Manhattan much.
Okay,
Like, Queen, like I used to again, so it's so funny, man. Like I used to like, dating in Manhattan. I mean, for all the pluses in my like it's so convenient because you never have to worry about parking your car. Like what
sure.
a thing. And COVID like completely knocked out that reality. It's
Yeah.
like because like you remember restaurants were closed down. I mean, I think it's better now. I just haven't like gotten back into the groove of things. But yeah, for the most part, it's more like suburban outside of Manhattan type of New York that I've been living my life in. And really again, like doubling and tripling down on all the stuff I do. Like, writing the books, I'm sure a lot of people that try would agree. It's an exhaustive effort. And content creation is exhaustive. And I'm in a bit of a control freak to give you more insight in me. So I'm editing the videos myself. I'm copy editing the book myself. I'm designing the covers myself. The only thing I haven't done in the creative process is I didn't master the audio on the audiobooks because I don't know how to master them digitally so that Audible would accept them. Everything else, man, I've got my fingerprints all over it.
Oh, I love that, man. I think let's talk a little bit about because you brought something up as well of like going back out, getting back into the groove of things, like seeing friends, going out to dinner, those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. I live in rural Idaho, right? So
Wow.
COVID was a thing, but like, I lived about 30 miles outside of Boise. And so like Boise's small when you talk about cities. Middleton is really, it's two stoplight town basically is where I live. And although COVID was a thing, it did not impact us maybe the same way that it did in like big cities. And in some of that is the way that philosophically people in this area approach COVID, good, bad, or indifferent. I didn't have a lot of rust to shake off
Mm.
from social interactions and experiences and those types of things. Did you find yourself like kind of doing a re-entry and have to get the cogs and the gears like going again on what it's like to like really have regular human interaction and actually have to kind of push yourself into
Mm-hmm.
having those interactions because you came comfortable being where you are, I guess, in your home or things like that? Because I've heard that from folks on the show.
So for me, there wasn't a struggle there. Because even though I didn't have in-person conversations, I was on Zoom all the time.
Sure.
So, standard human behavioral social interaction did not cease in that way. What I did notice is there isn't like rust in that sense, but I literally have evolved just as who I am. Because I've gone down like a lot of, just rabbit holes, and I'm always exploring new ideas. So technically, the person that people knew when they were interacting with me back in 2019 is a different human being to some extent in 2022 and in 2023. So I noticed that the way that I'm engaging, it isn't like I'm trying to like find the groove again. I'm just like a different person.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to articulate and hard to describe, but it's kind of like literally like, it's kind of like going to sleep. It's like going to sleep and then the world changes and you wake up, it's a different world. It's like within myself internally, there's a different world there also.
Just sitting there like Charlton Heston and Planet of the Apes, right? Ah! No,
Yeah.
hey, speaking of evolving, like what are you up to these days, man? Like what are you focused on? Like you sell a million books, now it's words I used to sell a million books. Or what's your next thing that you're working on? Where's your intentionality and focus these days?
Yeah, so it's funny, like the whole thing, 3 words I used to sell 100,000 books, that kind of came about naturally. So
Yeah.
there's a couple of books I have in mind that I can't share just yet because I'm still tweaking the titles and I want to make sure that they're really good. I actually want to try to do a short title for a change. We'll see how well I do with that.
Yeah.
Um, but for the most part, I'm not rushing myself. Like the main thing I've been doing right now is I'm trying to double and triple down just on the YouTube content. My understanding, and I could be wrong about this, but my understanding is that shorts, they're going to be monetized in 2023, and that's going to lead to further
Yeah.
explosion. So I'm trying to get ahead of the game. And even as we speak again, before we hit the call, I finished like the editing on a video. I'm trying to upload a new short every day for the rest of the month, and hopefully even for the rest of the year. So a lot of my focus is on doing that, still doing interviews and kind of like doing whatever comes in front of me. So I'm not the most organized, strategic person of having a battle plan. It's more of like, I'm going to spray these bullets. I'm going to, have as much gratitude and appreciation for what's coming in as possible. And we'll see how many books the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read sells. We'll see how many copies of 3 words I sell 100 books sells. I'm kind of like just taking it one day at a time without any other specific action other than like, let's just get out there, create value, and see where it inspires me and see where it takes me.
I love it, man. And from the areas that you're an expert in, is there
Mhm.
anything that is worth uh, talking about, chatting about on this podcast that maybe I overlooked, or a message that you're trying to get out to folks?
Let me give you one of my free tips or free insights from 3 words I use to sell 100,000 books, which here's the thing, the way you hear it, it's obviously targeted towards a nonfiction author who has work that's going to help someone do something or learn something or achieve something or solve a problem or challenge in their lives. But I hope through this lesson, people will actually see how this applies to products and services that have nothing to do with nonfiction books. But also, I hope that this would, on an even more macro level, just give people another insight about human psychology that they haven't thought about, and maybe it'll inspire an idea with them. And one of the things that I teach about in 3 words I used to sell 100,000 books regarding the cover is I call it the Amazon squint test. And the thing about this is, when people are they're designing a book cover, whether they're doing their own book cover or they hired someone to do it and they're doing it, they always have the cover like blown up, full vibrant, like right in their face, because subconsciously, even in that moment, they're trying to sell the book to other people. And what my perspective is in designing my covers is in understanding, okay, how is this actually going to look? Actually, the thing about this is most times people are going to see the book, it's going to be a small version of it along other books. Like you might be interested in this, or people that bought this also bought this. So with that understanding, I have what I call the Amazon squint test, which is basically when I'm designing my cover, let me shrink it down on my screen and ask myself, if people were to look at it and glance at it, would they have to squint or struggle for an extra second to know what the title was, to know what the book was? And if they did, that means that the cover is not ready yet. So I designed the cover, yeah, to work really, hopefully pretty and really nice and everything when you're holding it, but also to be legible or readable or understandable in the format that most people experience it on Amazon or other websites. And when you have that insight, like that changes everything, because now you're thinking differently of like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should be writing the introduction to the book with the understanding that people are going to read the Amazon preview. Maybe I should be writing the table of contents and the chapter titles with the understanding that people are going to read that. So, for example, 3 words I used to sell 100,000 books. One of the chapter titles, um, creating a cover that can't be ignored. Is it better to say that or just have a title that says your cover? It's like if people read your cover, they're not going to be interested. But if I titled it, and hopefully I'm accurate, I'm being honest and integrous, creating a cover that can't be ignored, people are looking over that, even though they're that chapter, like maybe now this is an interesting book I want to check out. Maybe now I'm more interested. So when you really think about the customer experience, now that bleeds out into everything. That bleeds out into business with non-books. That bleeds out into relationships. That bleeds out into dating. What is the experience of this woman or man if they're going to read my dating profile? Have I thought about that? Have I thought about what that first profile pic looks like? Because if they don't go past that, they're not going to see the other ones. Have I thought about the customer journey of a woman or a man on that dating profile? Like maybe I don't want to see the dog with me with the photo with me with the dog until the third pic. Maybe I don't want to have one me standing next to a fancy car because I don't want people, that are gold diggers. Maybe I don't even want them to see my car. Like, are people thinking on that level of insight in every human interaction, whether it's their book, their product, a dating profile, a job interview, a cover letter? You see and notice how I talked about like the Amazon squint test and how it bleeds out into everything about life, because everything in life is about your interaction with other people.
Just the intentionality that you're putting toward those things, the thought of, how am I interacting with this particular product, or and when I'm the product, how are people interacting with me? Right. That's the other side of it. That's beautiful, my man. Beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that insight, and I appreciate your time today, man. I definitely encourage people to go out and check out Andrew. Again, his 2 books, The Last Law of Attraction Book You'll Ever Need to Read, and 3 Words I Use to Sell 100,000 Books. Andrew, you said you're very active on YouTube these days, especially in the shorts environment. Where else can people find you online so I can throw it into the notes of the podcast?
Yeah, thanks so much. I mean, people, if you go to awesomemarvelous.com, that'll give you very easy links to at least the US sites for the books and my YouTube channel. Although you can always check your local Amazon and your local Audible if you want. I am on Instagram, Andrew Cap Insta, but I'm not very active. It really is like just the YouTube. Like my attitude is, listen, if you want to pull your wallet out, there's the books. If you want free content, there's the YouTube. I genuinely hope it serves you either way. And Jake, I also want to thank you. I notice very much I'm always a chatterbox anyway, but I spoke a lot, and that's to me usually the mark of a very intentional podcast host that knows how to pull information out of their guests. So thank you for being such a warm and welcoming guest, and such an insightful host rather, and such an insightful question asker. I really appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure, my man. I'm that's the muscle that I'm trying to get strong at, is at being interested instead of interesting. So I'm grateful for that compliment, my man. Hey, thanks again for joining us, and go check out Andrew. Great episode, man. Cheers.
Thank you so much.